Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Pinterest for all of you authors out there who are thinking about using Pinterest in the future. But before we get started, I want to remind you, go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz, www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com, and find out if you're ready to publish. I know you put a lot of work into writing, but you have to actually start that audience building and the promotion before you start publishing. So you have to have a plan where this is all going. And then also, if you are listening on iTunes and you want to see these people in person, we have video over on YouTube or over on my website. So go over and subscribe to us on YouTube. It's Super Brand Publishing. So today's guest is Diana Mantey. And Diana is a Facebook ads and Pinterest manager serving 6- and 7-figure service-based business owners who want to grow their audience, fill their launches, and sell their offers using Facebook ads and or Pinterest. She's based in Tempe, Arizona, and works with clients around the world. So welcome, Diana.
Thanks so much, Julia. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So we've been talking about Facebook for years on here. I know people have gotten a little bit disillusioned with Facebook ads, but back when I started promoting my books, Pinterest had just come around. And I've noticed more and more people are promoting their books over there. So can you talk about the value of Pinterest and how everybody gets started with all of this?
Yeah, of course. And so the first thing that's important to know about Pinterest versus something like Facebook or Instagram or other social media platforms is that it's social media, but less in the sense of actual social media, which it's more like Google, which is a search engine, and a lot of it is SEO based. So the content that you're putting up there has a much longer lifespan than, if you post something on Instagram or on Facebook, it's probably showing in the algorithm for a couple hours, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but on Pinterest, it exists forever. And so if it's a really awesome post, it can keep pulling up for people for years and years. And it's a great way for people to find you. So it's pretty easy to get started with Pinterest. As with anything, it's just, you can make a free account on Pinterest, make a business account, and then you can do a lot of things organically on Pinterest with the pin boards, and we can go into talking a little bit about that and the different kind of boards and strategies you can use for marketing a book specifically. But yeah, you can do a ton with organic, and also Pinterest also offers the ability to run ads. So if that's something that you did want to dive into, you certainly can, and they have great support for being able to do that too. But I would always recommend, of course, with anything, starting organically first.
Right. And for those of you, I know a lot of you, it's predominantly women that use it, I think, have been over there. I personally try to avoid it. That doesn't mean you should, but I pin recipes and exercises. And I swear that if I made all the recipes that I pin and did all the exercises that I pin, I would be a 400-pound Olympic athlete. So you can really get into big time sucks over there. It's a shopping place as well, correct?
Yes, it definitely is. And so like a lot of people go over there. The demographic is women who have purchasing power and are making or have a household income of 100,000 or more per year. So it's definitely fits in a lot of our ideal client avatar area, where a lot of them are going on Pinterest to make a purchase. And pins are a great source of, as it's SEO based, of referral traffic to your website. And so every pin, you can essentially link to your website, to Amazon if you're selling your book on there, to a free offer or like an ebook if that's something that you're offering. So to YouTube, anywhere that you're hosting content, you can use it as a source of getting people to find you in these different places through backlinks that are valued on Pinterest versus, I guess, on other social media platforms. Like now, if you put a link in a Facebook post, actually Facebook shows it less. They don't want people going from Facebook to YouTube or to Pinterest. But Pinterest is built on the backlinks. And so every pin you can connect to a link. So it drives referral traffic, and it's driving more referral traffic than Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit. So it's really powerful. And especially for the user, if your ideal client, right, is women, adult women who have a good amount of purchasing power that are looking to buy. Yeah, and it's becoming a lot more than recipes and workouts and making your ideal living room and planning your wedding. Of course, those things still exist, and people are creating their own pin boards for that, but it's also very powerful as a business owner to be able to create a Pinterest account where then your pins are becoming a part of these people's boards and becoming part of kind of their online vision board that they're creating for themselves within Pinterest.
Yeah. And here's what I love about it, you guys. A lot of you know, I got off Twitter in 2016. It used to be a really powerful place for authors. Got off Facebook in 2020. I don't do Instagram and all of that because all of that has gotten so toxic. And Pinterest is truly a place where you can enjoy the visual and shop and not be bombarded by all that toxicity. That's the way I feel. You don't see big wars, like, you know, arguments. It's just really a calm, fun place.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, of course, there's options to comment on pins and ask like the pinners questions and send messages and all of that. But a lot of it is more passive, right? Where people are just pinning things that they like and exploring different sites and shopping. So, and really, yeah, using it as a social media engine. And so when we're recording this right now, it's coming up on Halloween time. And so a lot of people are searching different things around Halloween, pumpkin recipes, sweet potato things. So it's all of that. That's where people go to Pinterest even more than, well, people still go to Google, but using it as like, I know I can go here and I can find what I'm looking for. So if you think of the book that you've written and you're thinking, what are the keywords that people would be searching that my book is about? It's the same kind of thing where if you're making your boards and your pins and using these keywords, you can be, you're basically making yourself searchable so that people can find you when they're searching these things.
So true. And I have to, full disclosure, my recipes, when I make them, they never look like they do on Pinterest.
Oh, I know.
I had a friend who, a male actually, who used to cook off there all the time, and he would share the pictures, and it's like, how'd you do that? That looks just like what was on Pinterest. Like mine never looks like that.
Hopefully it still tastes good.
It still tastes good, but you know, I'm just not one of those pretty cookers.
That's okay.
So for those people who want to use this for books, you said you can hook it up to Amazon, you can hook it up to your website if you're selling on your website. Talk a little bit about the ads. Like if you wanted to go next level and run into ads, what sort of foundational things should you have built first?
Yeah, I would recommend always, of course, having an organic base first, and then based off that, they give you insights and analytics so you can see what are my best performing pins, what are people clicking on the most, what message is resonating. And the other thing is, if you have, you know, you're creating a pin for, let's just say your book launch of saying like, this is my schedule, this is where I'm going to be on these dates, and you want to share that on Pinterest, you can create different pins. And so Pinterest views a pin as a unique pin as long as the graphic is different. Right. So you can use the same caption, just change the image. So you can have fun in Canva if Canva's your thing, but of course don't get lost in it. Creating, you know, 6 to 8 different types of pins for the same offer, and maybe changing up the words or the design a little bit, but you'll see then which designs, which wording on the pin is what is resonating with people. Because with anything, and same with marketing messages, there's going to be a clear winner and there's going to be a clear loser. So when you know this, then you know, okay, if I'm going to promote a post, or if I'm going to run ads or have traffic to one of these, one of my pins, you're going to want to choose the top performer, and you're going to want to choose it for a top performing offer too. So that's where building your foundation, kind of figuring out what pins rock, which ones should I not run ads to, like which ones aren't getting too much reach, which ones aren't people clicking on, so that gives you kind of like step above of, I know this converts organically, kind of like how we want to test our offers in advance. And then from there, you can run ads and traffic to it too. So you can do something like a traffic campaign, which would just essentially bring traffic to your website. It doesn't always guarantee that people are going to buy. For that, you'd be looking for more of a conversion campaign, very similar to on Facebook and Instagram, where you would install the Pinterest pixel and you would want to track for purchases. So that would be more telling Pinterest, I want you to find people who are going to buy my book. Click on my ad and go and buy my book.
Interesting. So just to kind of understand the organic piece of this, if I go over to Facebook and I connect with you, and then you can see all of my stuff, I can see all of yours. On Pinterest, it's not like that, is it? It's you have to have people pinning and following you, and you're pinning and following people as well. Is that right?
So there's still the followers, but I would say they're less important on Pinterest than necessarily on Facebook. So on Facebook, if your account is private, then only your friends can see it. And same with other people, if their account is private, only if you're their friend, they can see it. With a business profile, you're making your things public, right? So it can be shown to anybody. They don't need to be your followers. Basically, if someone does decide to follow you, it means more of your content is going to fill up in their feed, but your content can still be shown to people if they're not following you. Because again, it's kind of like Google, where as long as they're searching those keywords, Pinterest is going to say, here's pinners or here's pins that are exactly what you just typed into the search bar, regardless of if you're following or not. So it's always great to have a following, but it's more about, are you using the right keywords and how are people finding you? And that's a way to build your following on Pinterest.
And what's a good way to test those keywords?
Yeah, so you can type into like the Pinterest search bar, like different things that you're thinking, and you can see what other things show up or fill out. Anything, if you're in your ideal client's mind of what would they Google, right? What if they were looking for something like what I'm looking for, what would they be Googling? Other things would be if they're a specific career or something like that. So if you're like, oh, this is for bakers, or this is for bookkeepers, or this is for interior designers, making sure that that job title is in your description, because too, people who are looking for those things are likely going to be searching that in, or that's part of their bio. So again, Pinterest can use their algorithm and what they know about their users to show them relevant content too. So things like that. Others, like if you're just looking for moms, or if you're, it's a cookbook or recipes or something like that, really using what do you want to be known for? What are the people that would read your book really looking for? Kind of like any market research of how you're looking for your overall messaging and your ideal client. And then what are the words that they would be searching related to what you're offering?
Okay. So I have to ask this because I run into this on Pinterest every once in a while. Like obviously with a book, we know we're going to click on the book. It's going to lead us someplace else. Should we be careful about being upfront about leading to somebody someplace else? And let me describe to you. Sometimes I'll click on a recipe because I want to make it. Mm-hmm. And at other times I'll click on it and it'll go to Etsy and they're selling the recipe, which always kind of disturbs me. So is there something we should know about that I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like I always look around like there's got to be a free place to get this.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I think it's up to you and your brand on if you want to share like $37 offer or buy the recipe, or this comes in a collection for this price on your pin or in your caption, or if you just want to see if people click and what they do when they land there. So, and again, that comes back to like creating the different pins for the different offers. On some of them, you can disclose that this is for a price. And on some of them, you can not disclose it's for a price, and then kind of see from there what happens and what in terms of clicks and outbound clicks and saves and all of those different types of things. But yeah, another thing is if you're kind of like, well, I would want to know up front, and that's just me and my brand is very transparent, then of course share it on there. If you're kind of like, I believe that if it's the right thing, people are willing to pay for it once they see it, then you don't have to. So totally up to the pinner.
Okay. So another thing, I noticed there's a lot of video on there. So is the conversion rate higher with video? Does it really matter? Because some of those videos have the most obnoxious music. No. Should you add music? Should you not add music? Like, tell us about the video features.
Yeah, so again, whatever feels on brand to you. I think it's the same thing, kind of like with creating things on Instagram or creating them on Facebook. If video's on brand for you, go for it. And if it's not, people are going to be able to tell, right? If you're uncomfortable on video, if you usually don't create it and all of a sudden you feeling like, oh, I'm forced to create this video for some pins or for social media, typically that comes through and just kind of like overall body language that like, this isn't usually what I'm doing, right? But if making reels and TikToks is part of your brand and like that's what you vibe off of course, like download them, repurpose them, use them on Pinterest and all of that. Music depends on like the rights to the music. So usually if you're going to download it like from an Instagram reel, it's going to download without music. And I think too on Pinterest or some things, depending, people don't always have their sound on. So that's up to you. And also with the rights of like the music and who has that.
Yeah, you guys said something to be very careful about. When I worked in advertising, that all that music you see in the back of an ad on TV, we have to go buy it. We have to go get the rights to it. We can't just say, I remember like winter, there was one Christmas where they sold the rights to 2 different car companies for the same music. And we had to pull our ads because they sold it to them first. So you do have to it's not called duty free, it's called royalty free. You have to go get royalty free music unless you've actually bought that music for it. But yeah, I see all that. But my number one question is on the videos, do their kitchens really look like that? Because mine is never that clean when I cook, ever.
I don't know. And so another good question, I mean, if you're a professional blogger and that's what you're doing every day is like, you have a kitchen blog and that's how you're making your income, maybe you do clean your kitchen to look like that to make some cash, you know? So always a good question. Or, you know, sometimes people rent places for photo shoots or to make their videos and that kind of thing. So I think it depends.
Oh yeah, well, they better be making some money to be renting places for video shoots and productions. I don't get a sense a lot of those do that, but I do. I'm always very curious when everything's so clean and so awesome. So anything else we need to know about Pinterest to get started?
I would say when you're thinking about what different kinds of pins to share, and so of course immediately it comes to like, oh, I can link where I'm selling my book to my pins. But otherwise, like once you do that, right, and you create 8 pins, you're like, okay, Diana, now what? What else do I pin, right? So other things that you can create as an author on Pinterest is telling your story as an author. So who you are, where you're from, how you became an author, other books that you've wrote, your backstory, and that kind of thing. And again, these can link back to your about page on your website or your other social media accounts or different videos that you've created or things like that. Testimonials and feedback from your readers, that's an awesome thing to share. We all love social proof. It's a huge driver behind purchases. So when other people are seeing like, oh, this person bought this book and this was their review, or oh, this professor used this book for their teaching their course. That's awesome. As a maybe teacher or professor, that would give them insight of like, oh, wow, this could be good for my course too. So that's another thing that you can pin about. You can also, if you have multiple books, create different boards for each of your books. And then 2, if you're, depending on what kind of book you have, but if you mention other people or organizations or all of those things, you can pin or follow basically those different organizations or people that you're talking about in your book back to that board. So if people are looking at their board, they can make connections between the book and finding other people. And it's also a great way of just kind of that web of interconnectedness of like, oh, if somebody's searching this organization that I wrote about in my book, it's possible that they can come back and find me. So having that connection there. I know I talked about like book signings and talks, but of course, if you're going on tour, those types of things, sharing different conferences you're speaking at. So anything that kind of gives you that elevated authority and expertise and sharing about different events. And then 2, as an author yourself, what books are you reading? What other books or things would be valuable to your audience is another great thing to share as well. So, and then just being consistent, as with anything, is consistency is the name of the game. So if you're like, I'm going to start on Pinterest, of course, it's not like you have to pin every single day. If you want to, more power to you. But if you make a schedule of, okay, I'm going to do it once a week or twice a week or whatever that is. So at least you're being consistent, you're growing your following. And again, don't expect results overnight. It's SEO based. So you'll see the longer your pins exist, the more they're going to show. So maybe the first week you have a handful of views, but by the second week, it's up to 30 or 40. And by the third week, it's at 100. And so by the end of the month, you could have 1,000 views on your pins, but it doesn't happen overnight. And everything is going to kind of build on top of each other. And it's kind of like a snowball effect. And that's why I emphasize consistency too, because as you continue to show up, Pinterest recognizes that and will continue to keep your pins active.
Nice, very nice. So where do we find you if we want to find out more, if we want to run some ads, or at least talk about what it takes to get started?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, my Diana Mantey, and otherwise, that's probably the best place to find me. I'm also on Pinterest as at Diana _ I think it's NG Entrepreneur. So I'm on there. But yeah, feel free to reach out and connect, and we can talk strategy or take a look at what you're currently doing.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing all this today.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. It was great joining you.